Research shows that taller people get paid more per hour. So what's going on? Are taller people actually better, or are managers falsely perceiving them to be better? Some researchers argue that taller people are actually smarter based on their cognitive development. However, in this video, I want to focus on the opposing side, and I want to explain 4 factors that I think are subconsciously influencing managers to give a higher salary to taller people. 1. Tall seems powerful. Now, this one might seem obvious on the surface, but there's a lot more to it. We intuitively believe that tall things are powerful. In a visual hierarchy of employees, managers seem more powerful with longer vertical lines beneath them. But how did we acquire this association? Well, in our everyday lives, tall things are often physically powerful. From a very young age, when we were babies, we were at the full whim of our parents, who were vertical giants to us. But the problem with this tall equals power association is that in addition to physical power, we also have the concept of abstract power, which is different. You don't need to be physically powerful in order to possess metaphorical power in an organization. Yet, as I argue in my last book, The Tangled Mind, every abstract concept in our brain is constructed from sensory experience. So our concept of abstract power has been constructed from our concept of physical power, and thus our brains confuse physical power with abstract power. For example, research shows that government officials are more likely to go to war if they are physically stronger because they misconstrue their physical power with abstract power. Quote, "It would be delusional in the modern world to think that your personal strength determines or even influences how effective your nation's military will be in war, yet our subjects' strength predicted their attitudes toward military action." This concept would also happen if we are judging somebody else. If a candidate is taller and thus physically powerful, then managers will misconstrue this physical power with abstract power. If managers can simulate this person lifting a heavier physical load, then managers can simulate this person lifting a heavier abstract load of tasks. 2. Managers confuse spatial magnitude with abstract magnitude. I just explained how our brains use physical power to construct our concept of abstract power. But again, this mechanism occurs with any abstract concept. For example, we constructed the abstract concept of numbers from the sensory concept of spatial size. So today, our brains confuse spatial size and numerical size. Recently, the FDA started requiring food labels to visually enlarge the calories because this larger visual size feels like a larger numerical size, which reduces overconsumption. Now, if a manager is choosing a salary for a particular candidate, then managers will naturally gravitate toward a salary that matches the spatial magnitude of that candidate. If a candidate is tall or big, then managers will gravitate toward a larger salary because of the underlying confusion between spatial size and abstract numerical size. If you want to learn more on why that happens, Chapter 3 of The Tangled Mind goes into more detail. 3. Height triggers an anchoring effect. Look at this number. Now, estimate the number of dots on the screen. Whatever your guess is now higher than it would have been because of your exposure to that large number. When you estimated the number of dots, you started from that anchor point and then adjusted downward until you reached a number that felt plausible, and by nature, that number would have been on the higher side of that number spectrum. If I displayed a lower number to you, then you would have needed to adjust upward until reaching a number that felt plausible, and this number would have been on the lower side of that number spectrum. In those examples, the anchor was a number, but anchors can also be spatial. In one study, people drew short or big lines. Then, researchers asked questions like, what is the length of the Mississippi River? People who drew big lines gave higher estimates. Those big lines activated the concept of a large magnitude, which then anchored people to give higher estimates. That same effect would also be happening in a hiring context. When managers are determining a salary, a tall candidate will act like a big line. This height will activate the concept of a large magnitude, and with that concept activated in their brain, managers will be anchored toward a higher salary. 4. Bigger is better. In one study, both adults and children consistently preferred geometric shapes that were larger. The researchers concluded that we all possess this deep association that bigger is better, and taller people, who are bigger, would naturally inherit this enhanced perception. But what's causing this perception? Well, it could be the misattribution of power, like I explained earlier, but I also think there's something else going on. Suppose that a manager is interviewing somebody tall. This exposure would activate the concept of a large magnitude. Simultaneously, the manager is also evaluating this candidate on certain personality traits like intelligence, motivation, responsibility. The manager wants somebody with a lot of intelligence or a lot of motivation or a lot of responsibility. And notice my wording. We conceptualize these personality traits as possessing a certain degree of magnitude. Therefore, while evaluating those traits, the manager will experience cross-contamination because of those co-occurrences. With a large candidate, managers will falsely perceive a larger magnitude of intelligence, motivation, responsibility, and anything else that they're evaluating this candidate on. And that could be the reason why we have this deep association that bigger is better, because of that cross-contamination. If that's true, then being tall might backfire for managers who are pessimistic. If a manager is evaluating a candidate on negative traits like stupidity, laziness, irresponsibility, then a tall candidate might be perceived to possess a large magnitude of those negative traits. So the impact of height might depend on the types of traits that managers are evaluating people on. All right, so in this video, I focused on height, but obviously there are many factors that play a role with gender and race as well. You can refer to the Tangled Mind for more details on those biases, as well as everything else that we talked about in this video. But it's important to uncover and understand all of these biases. If we know the factors that are unfairly influencing our decisions, then we can structure procedures and environments to prevent those biases from happening. Whether managers should pre-commit to a salary beforehand, or whether they should create more anonymity in the application process, or whether they just simply need to be aware of these principles that are influencing their decisions. There are steps we can take to rectify these biases. And if you want to learn more factors that are influencing our perception, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.